VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Well, thanks for tuning in for another week on Crosstalk here on the VCY America Network. Quite busy with a lot of news last week, and we're going to start this week with a news roundup. There are things that are going on today as well as throughout the course of last week that we just don't want it to get swept under the rug, so you know what is taking place, what is going on, and how you can be informed on a number of vital issues. If you recall, several weeks back into the end of 2011, there was great controversy over this defense, the National Defense Authorization Act. Some $27 billion less than Obama's request. It was a $662 billion bill. But the bill contained several detainee provisions that several liberties groups and human rights advocates strongly oppose, arguing that they would allow the military greater authority to detain and interrogate U.S. citizens and non-citizens and deny them legal rights that are protected by our Constitution. President Obama signed this on December 31st, and it does allow the president to hold enemy combatants in military detention facilities without trial until the end of hostilities if the person substantially supported al-Qaeda, the Taliban, or associated forces that are engaged in hostilities against the United States or its coalition partners. Now, keep in mind, wasn't it the Department of Homeland Security that used terms like domestic terrorism before to describe those who were in opposition to abortion? Well, the law allows the president to determine which groups may be considered terrorist without judicial or congressional oversight, although Secretary of Defense is required to regularly brief Congress about covered persons. LifeSiteNews.com reported that Senator Carl Levin said the Obama administration specifically asked senators for the power to permanently detain American citizens without trial and to remove the language which says that U.S. citizens and lawful residents would not be subject to this section. Well, the Section 1022 states the requirement to detain a person in military custody under the section does not extend to the citizens of the United States. Many contend the law allows detention as an option for Americans captured abroad. Well, the debate goes back and forth on this. Deanna Cody, president of the executive director of the Life Legal Defense Foundation, said pro-life activists already are classified as domestic terrorists on some FBI list. She said that on one occasion, the manager of a Kansas City abortion clinic slammed her client to the ground and told the peaceful pro-life demonstrator he was photographing her license plate so he could report her to the FBI. Well, there has been great controversy over this and the signing of this that has gone to two different levels now. WND is reporting that state and local officials in surging numbers are telling Washington they simply will not cooperate with any plans to detain Americans the federal government may choose to describe as, quote, belligerents. The issue centers on provisions in the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, and it was signed by the president for the indefinite and rights-free detention of those Washington cities as belligerents, whether American citizens or not. WND reported that when Representative Daniel Gordon immediately drafted a resolution in Rhode Island legislature to express opposition to the section of NDAA, that's the National Defense Authorization Act, he wrote legislation right away that we're going to this bill suspends habeas corpus and civil liberties, and as far as our state's concerned, we're not going to get involved with this. Sources close to the 10th Amendment Center say as many as 10 states will consider legislation or resolutions in response to the detention provisions in sections 1021 and 1022 of the National Defense Authorization Act. Now, there has been some legislation drafted in Congress we want to tell you about, not hearing it from other sources, but it is in the form of a bill that is H.R. 3785. H.R. 3785 was drafted January 18th, originally drafted by Congressman Ron Paul, and has now been co-sponsored just by three other congressmen, Representative Amash of Michigan, Representative Duncan of Tennessee, and Representative Jones of North Carolina. And basically, the legislation here is 1/2 of a page. And it is to repeal Section 1021 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2012. It's to repeal this section, and that's been put forth. It especially essentially codifies into law the very dubious claim of presidential authority under the 2001 authorization for the use of military force, whisking them to an undisclosed location indefinitely, no right to attorney, no right to trial, no day in court. Well, H.R. 3785 would undo that legislation. It's not going anywhere with 4 co-sponsors here at this point, but want to tell you about it. So if you wish to contact your congressman accordingly, you have the ability to do so. In addition to this H.R. 3785 that's been introduced, there is also H.R. 3676 that was introduced to amend the detainee provisions of this Defense Authorization Act to specifically state that United States citizens may not be detained against their will without all the rights of due process afforded to citizens in a court ordered or established by or until Article 3 of the Constitution of the United States. That was also drafted here in December, introduced. That one now has 58 co-sponsors. That's H.R. 3676. As always, you can contact your congressman at 202-225-3121 in regard to that. Well, Vic alluded to this, I believe it was last week on Crosstalk, but I want you to hear the clip itself of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as she was being interviewed. She, of course, is sworn to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and she made some very startling statements. She was interviewed by Al Hayat in Egypt, trying to develop a government there after citizens have deposed their dictator, Hosni Mubarak. Egypt, of course, facing a number of major obstacles. WorldNet Daily reports to a democratic form of government as the Muslim Brotherhood, as a political party, has been assembling a majority in the country. But among the goal they have is a Muslim caliphate worldwide, Muslim control, Muslim rule. So she was asked the question, would your honor's advice be to get part of other countries' constitution as a model, or should we develop our own draft? And asked about the United States. Listen to the question and then how she responded to it.
Would your honor's advice be that a society like ours, with what we like to call a transition to the Second Republic, would your honor's advice be to get a part or use other countries' constitutions, maybe the United States or other countries, as a model, or we come up with our own methods and our own draft?
You should certainly be aided by all the Constitution writing that has gone on since the end of World War II. I would not look to the U.S. Constitution if I were drafting a Constitution in the year 2012. I might look at the Constitution of South Africa. That was a deliberate attempt to have a fundamental instrument of government that embraced basic human rights, had an independent judiciary. It really is, I think, a great piece of work that was done. Much more recently than the U.S. Constitution, Canada has a Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It dates from 1982. You would almost certainly look at the European Convention on Human Rights. So yes, why not take advantage of what there is elsewhere in the world? I'm a very, very strong believer in listening and learning from others.
Isn't that interesting? I would not look to the United States Constitution if I were drafting a constitution in the year 2012. Let's look at South Africa. Let's look at Canada and their Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Very interesting from one. Here's Matt Staver from Liberty Counsel said, for a U.S. Supreme Court justice entrusted with the duty to interpret the Constitution, this type of statement is unacceptable. Justice Ginsburg failed to respect the authority of the document that is her duty to protect. When given the opportunity to promote American liberty abroad, Justice Ginsburg did just the opposite and pointed Egypt in the direction of progressivism and the liberal agenda. Ginsburg also noted that among her favorite parts of the Constitution is the provision that judges' salaries cannot be reduced, as well as a guarantee of independence to the judges. She said the U.S. Constitution is rather old. Well, a 3-judge panel of the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled last week Proposition 8, through which voters in California had defined marriage in their state constitution as being between one man and one woman, as unconstitutional, reports WND. 2-1 ruling upheld the district court decision by Judge Vaughn Walker, by the way, who is a homosexual who was in a position to benefit from his own decision. Voters had passed this in 2008, 52% margin. The vote comes only months after the state Supreme Court decided to impose same-sex marriage by killing state statutes and limiting marriage to a man and a woman. So California judges there overturning Prop 8. No doubt this is going to be headed to the U.S. Supreme Court. An interesting press release came out from the United Church of Christ. Leaders of the United Church of Christ applauded the ruling handed down by the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, calling California's Prop 8 unconstitutional. They said, quote, "We are thankful for the important step this has been taken toward marriage equality with the overturning of Proposition 8, said the Reverend James Moose, Executive Director of the UCC's wider church ministries. While we still have work to do, we can proceed with renewed vigor in our quest for justice." Well, the Colorado Senate, considering a bill that would legalize same-sex civil unions, the bill has been assigned to the Senate Judiciary Committee in Colorado. If signed into law, Colorado will grant all the basic rights and privileges of marriage to same-sex couples. By the way, the war continues, the culture war continues in this area of J.C. Penney's. They have announced recently. Yeah, JCPenney's stores were family shop. Well, JCPenney recently announced that Ellen DeGeneres, open lesbian, who has insulted, or should I say assaulted, many people with the lifestyle that she continues to espouse. Well, she's going to be the spokesperson for JCPenney. Ellen DeGeneres open about her sexuality, and most of Penney's customers, by the way, are traditional families. There are people who are making contact to the JCPenney stores. I want to give you the customer number for you to jot down. The customer service number is 800-322-1189. That's 800-322-1189. Their corporate headquarters is 972-431-1000. And many are also... I believe it was the AFA who had suggested contact your local JCPenney store because corporate's been turning people away, corporate seeming to have a deaf ear. And when you contact your local store, ask for your manager, and you can ask that they pass the information on to the regional manager. And you can find your local JCPenney store in your local phone book and simply ask for the manager there for JCPenney. Well, Sheriff Joe, interesting story. Following a judge's ruling that Barack Obama is eligible to be on the state's 2012 Democratic Party presidential ballot, the front lines of the battle are now coming to the state of Arizona. And WND reports that Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio has said that his office has scheduled a news conference in Phoenix for March 1st to release findings of the cold case posse that's been investigating Barack Obama's birth certificate and eligibility to be president. That statement coming out on this upcoming March 1st. We're going to take a quick break and come back with more stories. You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, creation author and president of the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, in Genesis chapter 1, we see that each creation day ends with the formula evening and the morning, but not the seventh day. So does that mean that the seventh day is still continuing?
Chris, the reason the formula is different is because day 7 was different. The first 6 days of creation were days in which things were being accomplished, but on day 7, God finished his creation and he was resting. In the Ten Commandments, God equates the creation's seventh day with the seventh day of our work week. Obviously, both have limits. Christians who believe in millions of years have used this distinctive to say that if day 7 is now several thousand years long, then maybe the first 6 days were an indefinite period too. But there's no way a Hebrew speaker would be that loose with Scripture. And Chris, that's the way I see it from a Back to Genesis perspective.
This is Chris O'Brien. Thanks for going back to Genesis.
This is a news roundup day here on Crosstalk on the VCY American Network. Just a reminder to those of you living in Salina, Kansas, over KCVS Radio. Incorrectly reported this morning about a meeting that's taking place. At first mentioned that it was tonight, but it's actually tomorrow evening that your Salina Human Relations Commission is going to be meeting at 5:30 p.m. tomorrow at the City County Building in Salina. And they're looking at forcing brand new protections for gender identity and sexual orientation. And we certainly would encourage you to be in contact with the Salina Human Relations Commission there and let them know your views on that. Their number is 785-309-5745. That's 309-5745. Well, the federal debt has increased by $4.47 trillion since President Obama released his first federal budget, February 26 of 2009. That budget was entitled A New Era of Responsibility. Interesting. Well, the time has come to usher in a new era of responsibility in which we not only act to save and create new jobs, but also to lay a new foundation of growth upon which we can renew the promise of America. Well, this budget is a first step in that journey, he said, and what a journey it's been, folks. Our problems are rooted, he said, in past mistakes, not our capacity for future greatness, he said in the last paragraph of that budget message. Now, $4.47 trillion additional in debt. Interesting story caught my attention from the Washington Times last week. Drones over U.S. get okay by Congress. Privacy advocates are fearing a bill that Congress passed last week to make it easier for the government to fly unmanned spy planes in U.S. airspace. The FAA Authorization Act, which President Obama is expected to sign, also orders the FAA to develop regulations for the testing and licensing of commercial drones by 2015. Privacy advocates say the measure will lead to widespread use of drones for electronic surveillance by police agencies across the country and eventually by private companies as well. Here's a statement from Stephen Aftergood, who heads the Project on Government Secrecy and Federation of American Scientists. He said, there are serious policy questions on the horizon about privacy and surveillance by both government agencies and commercial entities. Also, the Electronic Frontier Foundation is concerned about the implications for surveillance by government agencies. According to some estimates, the commercial drone market in the U.S. could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars once the FAA clears their use. The agency projects that 30,000 drones could be in the nation's skies by the year 2020. The Department of Homeland Security is the only federal agency to discuss openly its use of drones in domestic airspace. Find out what you have to think about that a little bit later. Okay, from Operation Rescue, Pro-Life Nation announces that its groundbreaking new website, abortiondocs.org, has passed 1,000 document uploads. AbortionDocs.org is the most up-to-date database of existing abortion businesses and providers in the U.S. that contain the civil and criminal court records, disciplinary records, health department inspection reports, and other documents that paint a picture of rampant abortion abuses in the country. Here's some of the records on abortiondocs.org that list these abuses. You'll find illegal dumping of aborted baby remains, life-threatening botched abortions, coerced forced abortions, abortion-related deaths, criminal abortions, fraud, huge malpractice judgments, sex crimes on patients, unsafe clinic conditions, illegal weapons possession. Interesting database they're building at abortiondocs.org to expose what is taking place in the abortion business. LifeNews.com reporting about Shippensburg University in Pennsylvania. Well, they're coming under fire from pro-life advocates for offering morning-after pills in the form of the Plan B drug for sale in vending machines on campus. They've got about 8,300 students on campus. They already have a number of items in these machines, but this one is put in at the request of the Student Government Association. Kristen Hawkins for Students for Life of America condemned the sale of the drugs that can cause early abortions in some cases. She said SU is now offering curbside abortions in the form of morning-after pills, which are being discreetly sold to students in a vending machine located at the campus health center for $25 a pop. I really can't understand what's private about putting money into a machine to purchase a lethal drug and then watching folks bang on it when the pill box gets stuck. He said to allow an abortion pill on campus to be sold through a vending machine without even so much as a doctor's exam is beyond comprehension. Well, the liberal women on The View last Wednesday shrieked at the, quote, totalitarian decision by a Texas judge to uphold a law requiring women to look at an ultrasound before having an abortion. The Media Resource Center reports co-host and journalist Barbara Walters found the legal ruling, not the act of abortion itself, to be heartbreaking. Regarding the ruling, left-wing comedian Joy Behar spewed, quote, it's very totalitarian in my opinion. I mean, it smacks of forcing somebody to confront something that they have already decided they don't want to deal with. Well, rather than focus on the actual abortion, Walters lectured, quote, then to have to go be forced to hear, to see the fetus, to hear the heartbeat, to put more guilt on you, I think it's heartbreaking. No comment about the baby, perhaps being ripped from limb to limb, but it's heartbreaking to have to know what's going on. LifeSiteNews.com, the Netherlands Right to Die Association has announced it will soon fulfill a promise made last year to open a private euthanasia clinic, offering door-to-door service for people who can't convince their regular doctors to kill them. According to reports in the Spanish and Portuguese language press, the clinic will serve clients who wish to end their lives but have been refused from doctors for ethical reasons. They intend to maintain 6 mobile teams consisting of a doctor and a nurse. The service is to start on March the 1st. By the way, the Netherlands also permits the euthanasia of disabled newborn babies. There's always some good news. Here we have the Planned Parenthood facility in Storm Lake, Iowa, which provides telemed abortions in the small farming community. LifeSiteNews.com reporting they will be closing its doors March the 1st, according to Sue Thayer, one-time manager of the office, but now a staunch pro-lifer. South Dakota's year-old abortion law facing legal challenges. A House committee has endorsed a bill Wednesday last week that would change some of the counseling requirements for women seeking abortion. The Judiciary Committee voted 10-2 to send the measure now to the South Dakota House. The Pentagon has announced plans to allow women to serve in battalion positions that are closer to ground combat than had previously been permitted. 14,000 new jobs or assignment opportunities. Women still being barred from serving in infantry, armor, or special operations forces. Here, 1 in 5 Planned Parenthood affiliates nationwide. This is from CNSNews.com. 1 in 5 Planned Parenthood affiliates nationwide have been cited for financial irregularities, according to a report by the Alliance Defense Fund, a religious liberty legal organization that based its findings on data from state and federal audits. The report was sent to Representative Cliff Stearns, chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations, that's investigating the use of federal funds going to Planned Parenthood Federation of America. They are the nation's largest abortion provider, 79 affiliates, they say, across the country. Also interesting, from Forbes, saying the headline, why are the Chinese buying record quantities of gold? In January, the Hong Kong Census and Statistics Department reported that China imported over 102,000 kilograms of gold from Hong Kong in November. It's an increase from October's 86,000 plus kilograms. Analysts believe that China bought as much as 490 tons of gold in 2011, double the estimated 45 tons in 2010. The thing that's caught people's mind is a massive increase in Chinese buying, said Ross Norman of Sharps Pixley, a London gold brokerage firm. So who in China is buying this gold? The People's Bank of China. The central bank has been hinting that it's purchasing. No asset is safe now, said a representative. The only choice is to hedge risk is to hold hard currency gold. China buying record amounts of gold right now. Speaking of China, Governor Robert Bentley of, Alabama, last Tuesday announced an economic development agreement that will bring hundreds of new jobs to the state's Black Belt region. Well, what is it? Golden Dragon Copper of China, building a $100 million manufacturing facility near the town of Pine Hill in Wilcox County, Alabama. Universal Studios releasing Dr. Seuss The Lorax on March 2nd to theaters across the country. What's interesting, reports Christian Response Alerts, is that they are using the Lorax character to teach children how to be green and to fight rampant industrialism. That's capitalism, the engine of progress. The Lorax character is a creature who speaks for the trees and fights against the capitalist system. Well, the EPA will be using Lorax to promote low-power appliances that carry the Energy Star logo. EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson is overjoyed by the propaganda blitz against our children. According to Jackson, quote, "It's important to connect these dots between energy savings and efficiency in a cleaner environment," she told the AP. Bringing together the Lorax and Energy Star is a great venue for doing that. Also an interesting story here from Conservative Action Alerts. Michael Brown, former chief of operations at the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, recently testified that Hezbollah has developed relationships with the powerful Mexican drug cartels to move their agenda forward. The DEA just exposed a plot by an Iranian operative in Mexico to assassinate the Saudi ambassador in Washington, and according to experts, there's more danger on the way. What is that danger? Well, Iran planning to strike U.S. using open Mexican border. Representative Ross Lethinen of Florida, chairwoman of the committee, says Iran is working on plans to attack the U.S. Their friends in Latin America give Iran a platform in the region to carry out attacks against the United States, our interest, and our allies. Democrats on the committee agreed that Iran is trying to exert influence in the Western Hemisphere. Representative Gary Ackerman of New York considered that President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's recent trip to Venezuela, Cuba, Ecuador, and Nicaragua is proof that Iran is up to no good. Well, folks, we've commented a number of stories here today, and I want to give you an opportunity to give some feedback on these stories. Maybe there's some issue that's going on where you are from. Maybe you want to comment about Ruth Bader Ginsburg's statement here today as far as the U.S. Constitution or the legislation to do away with this the detention of American citizens. Our telephone number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. 1-800-733-9829 if you want to provide some feedback on these stories, or if there's an issue of a grave concern to you that you want to bring to our attention here today on Crosstalk. Our number, 800-733-9829. Interesting story as well out of the state of Tennessee. A father shot dead, and this is reported, by the way, in the London Daily Mail out of the UK. A father shot dead a young couple after allegedly becoming upset that they deleted his daughter on Facebook. Marvin Potter been charged with the first-degree murders of Billy Payne Jr. and his 23-year-old girlfriend, Billie Jean Hayworth, police said. Miss Hayworth's 8-month-old baby was found unharmed in her arms at the Mountain City home in Tennessee. Victims had complained to police that Janelle Potter was harassing them after they deleted her as a friend on their social networking site, according to Sheriff Mike Reese. The sheriff said it's a senseless thing. Deleting somebody, their friend on Facebook, merits, again, the charges alleging that they father shot a young couple because became upset that they deleted his daughter on Facebook. Well, maybe you want to comment on some of these stories here today. Our telephone number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. We'll be right back.
Israel is constantly in today's news. Did you know that Israel stretches only 263 miles from north to south, and its width ranges from 71 miles at its widest point to only 9 miles at its narrowest point? Yet a growing number of nations continue to denounce the existence of Israel. In the book Israel Under Fire, authors Jimmy DeYoung and John Ankerberg review the Bible prophecies concerning Israel's future, the nations that will come against Israel, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and if peace will ever be achieved in the Middle East. The book also reports on plans now underway for rebuilding the Jewish temple on the Temple Mount and guides the reader through the book of Revelation. Israel Under Fire shows just how important it is to know what the Bible says about Israel's future and why it matters to you. Israel Under Fire is available for a donation of $17 to VCY America and can be obtained by calling 1-800-729-9829. That's 1-800-729-9829.
By the way, I want to give you a heads up to tomorrow's Crosstalk program. We're going to be dealing with all this going on back and forth with the Obama administration and these mandates on birth control and abortifacients. We're going to be dealing with that on tomorrow's program, getting much more into it and exactly what's going on. Did the president change and compromise his policy last Friday, or is it just a same piece of medicine with a different wrapper? So we'll be looking at that on tomorrow's Crosstalk program. We hope you'll be able to join us for that. Well, we're taking your phone calls here today at Crosstalk. Our number is 800-733-9829. And we're going to begin with Mark in Erie, Pennsylvania. You're on the air, Mark.
Hi. Quick question. The church that's happy with the judges overruling the gay marriage over in California, that Church of Christ, is that the Church of Christ that you see out and about everywhere when you're out throughout the country?
The United Church of Christ, yes.
Is there different groups, or is that all one Church of Christ?
Well, it's United Church of Christ, which is like a denomination in itself. There may be some that have... There's a difference between Church of Christ and United Church of Christ.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you've got that. It's United Church of Christ that issued that statement.
And is that the same church that President Obama served?
I don't know what church he is serving.
Or where he was from, or that Reverend Wright was from?
I'm sorry, I don't have the name of that church, but this is, again, the UCC, United Church of Christ.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your call. Next to Massachusetts, and Buddy, you're on the air.
Hi, Jim.
Hi.
I'll beat you by one on that. I was listening to a Catholic radio station out in Hartford, Connecticut this morning, and the Catholic bishops have said no to the supposedly Obama compromise.
Yeah, it's not just them. There are many people saying no, and many denominations that are saying no to it. It's something that's an affront to anyone with any kind of conviction.
In fact, I told your receptionist Mary Friday when I talked to her that I'm glad the bishops didn't take the bait, because I said that bait is dipped in bleach and laced with rat poison.
Mm-hmm. Well, buddy, we're going to be hitting this issue more tomorrow's Crosstalk program.
I'll be listening. Don't worry about that, Jim. Thanks a bunch.
Thanks for the call. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Robert, you're on the air. Hello, Robert.
Yes. Okay, I just wanted to make a comment on what you said about the JCPenney issue. Okay, I used to work at the warehouse here in Milwaukee, and I noticed, like I was telling the guy to answer the phone, that down in the cafeteria, they had like a billboard. On the billboard, they had, like all type of literature, for GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance and all that there. And like a lot of the cleanup people that worked there, they were all, they were women, but they looked like men. So, I mean, I just, when you look and see what's going on, like basically in this world, it's like, the president and all of these people in power, it's just supporting the gay agenda.
And this is where the AFA has said, people call Penny's, ask them to replace Ellen DeGeneres as their spokesperson immediately, ask them to remain neutral in this culture war. And up to this point, Penny's has just been digging their heels in the ground and saying, no way. I mean, this reflects our company.
Yes, it does. And I had spoke to one of the other person that worked there. I said, why is it that, down here in this cafeteria, you don't see any type of Christian literature. All you see is this, this stuff supporting, transgender and, and gay and lesbian and all this and that, they took it away, but then, I guess they must have heard me complain about it. So they took it away, and then all of a sudden they brought it back, and they just included more.
Thanks for the comments here. I appreciate it. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Again, if you want to contact customer service at Penny's, it's 800-322-1189. But many are taking time to contact your local JCPenney store right there in your community, looking them up in the phone book and sharing your views with them. And ask that they pass your comments on to the district manager as well. There are many, many people all across this nation that are doing just that. Our number here to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. Kay, you're next in Pensacola, Florida.
Hi. I just want to say how upset I am about JCPenney and Starbucks. I mean, those are two of my favorites, and I frequented them, but not anymore. I mean, I'm just so upset over JCPenney having Ellen DeGeneres. That's the worst person they could have. And I just hope that all Christians will boycott and not shop at those two places.
It's important. It's important, Kay, though, that you contact them and let them know.
I did. I called my J.C. Penney last week and talked to the manager, and she was saying, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And I said, "Well, you can just stop supporting homosexuality." And I said, "I'm not calling just for myself. I'm calling for all Christians to boycott and not shop at J.C. Penney and Starbucks too." So, I put it on. I've told my friends on Facebook, about it, and I was just stunned when I saw that on Facebook about Starbucks. So I've even taken them off my Facebook, and I'm just really upset. That homosexuality just taken over everything that we have to use, and it's just like they're taking over the world.
And this
is really upsetting.
Yeah, and this decision was very much a kind of like an in-your-face kind of decision. I mean, they could remain neutral in this issue, but this is something that many believe is a great assault upon their family shoppers, the families who patronize them. I spoke to an individual last week who has been wearing Penny's clothing for over 50 years, and he told me, enough is enough. I'm not going to do it anymore. He went and spoke to the local manager on that issue, and you have to understand it's not the local managers making this choice, but they need to know because they'll pass
corporate.
it They'll pass it up to corporate. Yep.
I mean, I've shopped at J.C. Penney's and shopped at J.C. Penney's, and I love their clothes, but not anymore.
Kay, thank you for your thoughts.
I just love when y'all have these programs. I'm new in Pensacola, so I haven't really listened to Crosstalk that much. But to let us know that the companies that are doing this, so we can not support them anymore. Okay. And it's very informative.
Okay, thank you for your call, and take time to contact your radio station, WPCS, and tell them thank you for Crosstalk, and do whatever you can to support that station.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for your call. Let's go next to East Troy, and Jim, you're on the air.
Yeah, Jim. I was sitting here playing my piano, and I was playing America, My Country, 'Tis of Thee. Mm-hmm. And I think Miss Ginsburg should listen to the last verse. It says, "Our fathers, God, to Thee, author of liberty, to Thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us, Thy might, great God, our King." If that was good enough for our forefathers, it's good enough for me. I'll see you.
Thank you for your comments there, Jim.
Bye.
Yeah, many very disturbed about the comments a sitting Supreme Court Justice making here pertaining to our Constitution. Oh, let's go next to Edinburgh, Texas. David, you're on the air.
Yeah, I would like to revisit the subject you were talking about the other day in regards to the translation of Son, referring to Jesus as the Son of God in Muslim countries. A couple of things I'd like to say about it, and that is, well, first of all, I am a Wycliffe translator. I've been actually retired from Wycliffe now, and my wife and I did a translation of the New Testament into one of the Indian languages in Colombia, South America. And it's very, very important that you take into context cultural perceptions, and you don't want to translate anything into the other culture that is going to have the wrong meaning.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too involved in this conversation today because I do not have the materials before me. I know there have been statements that have come out from Wycliffe. We have also heard from Wycliffe associates who are very disturbed about what they have witnessed going on within Wycliffe as well, and it's more than just changing a heart to liver, but when we're dealing with the deity of the Son of God, that's a critical matter, wouldn't you think?
Well, if I were translating it, I would probably translate it as son, but I would have a very heavy a footnote to explain that. But we do need to understand why some of the translators are translating it that way.
Well,
You've got to translate the meaning. Mm-hmm. And when you translate, for example, Son of David, Jesus is the Son of David, you would translate it the descendant of David, not the son of David. And we don't want to transfer a meaning that Jesus came about, the birth of Jesus came about by virtue of sexual activity.
Yeah, and when I saw the translation, David, and again, I don't want to go more into it because there's so much more information on this issue, and I just don't have access to all of it before me right now. But when we are talking about deity, I mean, this is a very important matter here, in which a verse from Matthew talking about calling God Allah and His Messiah and His Spirit, and that's an issue that many have taken grave concern over how that matter is dealt with. But thank you for taking time to call. More info is on, of course, that Crosstalk program that was done back, I think, about 2 weeks ago now. Next to Portage, Wisconsin. Peter, you're on the air.
Yeah, Brother Jim, how are you today?
Fine, thank you.
I just want to comment on that National Defense Authorization Act.
Yeah.
Doesn't it guarantee in our Constitution that the government cannot detain American citizens, and we went and passed a law that says now that they can detain an American citizen, and now they're trying to pass another bill that says that they can't?
My understanding is indeed that this legislation, the National Defense Authorization Act, allowed for the detention of American citizens on our soil, and the legislation that's been drafted would remove that provision from the Defense Authorization Act.
It was already guaranteed in our Constitution in the first place that they can't do that.
I don't have the exact language from the Constitution before me here, so I can't affirm that, Peter. And if you've got the section, etc.
There's such a perversion going on in our government with the Constitution. Not only Ruth Bader Ginsburg saying that stuff all the way up to our president. It's just unbelievable to me that this stuff can go on, and they just keep passing laws that are already basically stuff is guaranteed in our Constitution right from the start.
Appreciate your call.
Thanks, Jim.
Next to Racine. Lat, you're on the air.
Yeah, what I want to say, Jim, is we call, as a nation, keep calling ourselves Christians, but we shouldn't be supporting these companies like JCPenney with gay homosexuality and these shows like Glee and all this stuff. All you got to remember, if you're a Christian, if you can sit in your living room or you can go to these stores, if Jesus was sitting right alongside you, you can watch this stuff, go ahead. But if you can't, you can honestly say in your heart that you can't watch that, you would be embarrassed if Jesus Christ was coming through your door. You shouldn't be watching that garbage. So I don't know where we're going with this, and we got to stop supporting this crap.
Lat, thank you for your comments here today. Our number 800-733-9829 is our call-in number. Let me just mention again, we're just seconds from the break here, so let me give you the numbers again for pennies. Customer service is 800-322-1189. Their corporate headquarters is 972-431-1000. 972-431-1000. And as so many are doing, contacting your local JCPenney store. Look them up in your phone book, finding the closest one to your home. And ask for the manager. And AFA is saying, please ask Pennies to replace Ellen DeGeneres as their new spokesman. Immediately remain neutral in the culture war. Well, we'll come back to more of your calls in just a minute. This is Crosstalk on VCY America.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. Many people are asking, why do we have the poor choice in presidential candidates that we have? I believe that one reason might be because God is turning our nation over for judgment. Romans chapter 1 tells us what happens to a nation that rejects God over and over again. But Romans 1 makes it very clear that one of the things you end up with as a nation that rejects God over and over is immoral, corrupt leaders. But not only that, leaders, verse 32 of Romans 1, leaders who discourage people from practicing righteousness and practice unrighteousness themselves. The Bible also tells us in verse 23 of Romans chapter 1 that your people, your leaders, will embrace false gods. Isn't it interesting that many of the people who are running for office at a national level, local level, state level, are rejecting the Jesus and God of the Bible? Thus, they embrace a false God. Can we use judgment to bring God glory? Yes.
It's the News Roundup Day here on Crosstalk today, and if you got a busy signal a bit ago, we do have a couple open lines right now at 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. Let's go next to Brad in West Dallas, Wisconsin, and good afternoon, Brad.
Good afternoon. I just want to mention, first of all, Lat really hit the nail on the head there. And remember, everybody, Jesus is sitting next to you when you're watching TV. But I just wanted to say that the paper president has no authority to do what he's doing with this insurance thing. It's fine and good that the Catholics and other denominations are standing up and crying foul, but what about everybody else? And what about all the other insurance companies that have to go through this? This is like you go to a car dealer and you buy a car, and they have to sell you a minivan too because Obama says so. Give me a break.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, and if he can mandate this birth control and so on, will he also mandate, okay, every insurance company must provide for abortions as well?
Yeah, crazy.
Appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
To England, Robert, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hi, Jim. Just hearing you've got a more general thing today, just want to follow up a point from VCY Today that you broadcast this morning. Here in Britain, we've got a situation where the High Court has mandated against councils starting with prayer.
Yeah, matter of fact, I have the Daily Mail before me, a landmark legal ruling banning the tradition of saying prayers at council meetings was denounced as an assault on Britain's Christian heritage. The High Court controversy backed an anti-religious campaign to abolish official acts of worship. How do you feel about that?
Well, we're in a slightly difficult situation here in Britain in not having a written constitution in the way that you have in the USA. Although there are certain things that are laid down constitutionally, and I think that the freedom for our councils to do this, to open in prayer, is actually constitutional because it's enshrined in tradition. And here in Britain, things that are enshrined in tradition are effectively part of our constitution. So I think we have an argument that the High Court has gone against the unwritten part of our Constitution in this because it's something that has been done for
centuries,
if not millennia.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and just like you've got in the USA the heritage of your founding fathers bringing Christian practice into the origins of the USA, similarly we've got this very long-standing tradition here in Britain, but in addition to that, because we've got the Church of England as the established church, that actually gives the church additional rights in our land, and I think those rights are being trampled on by this court ruling.
Robert, thank you for your call.
Thank you very much, Jim, for letting me on. Thank you.
God bless you. Bye-bye. To Joni in Milwaukee, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm calling about this thing with the homosexuality. You know, I'm not a person that's prejudiced or anything like that, but I am a Christian, and I love what God loves. And if His Word says that He is against it, then who are we or anybody else to not be against it? I mean, if you're not a Christian, then that's fine, but we as Christians, we should stand solid on the Word of God because Jesus is the rock, and His foundation is the foundation for the world. So when it all boils down and it comes to the end, God is going to do exactly what He did back in the days because He is a God that changes not. He is forever, today, tomorrow, and forever. He is the same God yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So His Word never changes. Mm-hmm. So therefore, the same thing that happened back in the day of Sodom and Gomorrah, that's going to be the same thing that's going to happen. I'm not hating on people, but I do hate the spirit because it is from the devil. And I am a person who do love God and serve Him and wish to do all that He has called me to do.
Thank you, Joni, for your call today. Next to Wisconsin Rapids, Wynn, you're on the air.
Yes, I just got through calling Penny's here in town.
Yeah.
And I talked to the manager, and I told her that I had been shopping at her store for 70 years, and I'm not going to do it anymore because of him getting a hold of having Ellen DeGeneres as a gay person. She said, well, she has such good traditional values. I said, no, she doesn't.
Yeah, so the manager said that Ellen espouses good traditional values?
Yes.
Wow. Well, what do you recommend other people do, Win?
Do the same thing I did, just not go in there.
Thank you for your call here today.
You're welcome.
To Alma, calling from Mission, Texas. You're on the air.
Yes, I just want to make a comment. I was reading the Bible, and I came across where, yes.
Go ahead, Alma.
Yes, I was calling because in the Bible it tells us that if we continue rejecting the righteousness of God or the Word of God, you know, He will give us a reprobate mind. But I think that all goes back to the lack of knowledge of the Word of God and following the instincts of men alone.
Yeah. Well, the Bible tells us that the heart of man is deceitful and desperately wicked.
Right. That's why we need guidance from God, but we've become more dependent on ourselves. I mean, I believe that the leaders of this country have become more dependent on themselves and their plan instead of God and His plan.
Thank you for your call, Alma. Next to Lewis in Green Bay, you're on the air.
Yeah. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I got a question. My question is, why is it that United States permit Islam here in the United States, and if you go around the world in other countries, they don't permit Christianity?
That's exactly the case. Certainly our Constitution does not prohibit the free exercise of religion. The problem that comes into being is that Islam goes much more than just a religion. It is actually a conquest that has been practiced in nations around the world, and that's the concern many have. We're going to squeeze one last thought in from Great Falls, Montana, and Jerry, go ahead. You're on the air.
Thank you. Yes, it seems as I recall that I learned years ago that J.C. Penney was famous for being a Christian and also giving a huge portion of his monies to Christianity because in church services and stuff they'd say, well, you know, J.C. Penney tithes or more, which is a lot of money, and I think it was the same with Laterno. But it's a sad thing if J.C. Penney himself was a Christian and would not go along with his stuff with DeGeneres. It's really a sad testimony, so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate your call. And by the way, again, that number for pennies is 800-322-1189. Corporate headquarters 972-431-1000. And you can also contact your local J.C. Penney store. Thanks for joining us today on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. Or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.